Hello everyone and welcome to my February faves. Now technically this is going to cover January's faves as well because I didn't do one in January. In fact the last one I did was in November, and that's partly because I did an end of year roundup of all my faves of different categories in 2023, and I'll link those down below for you if you haven't seen them. And it may be a longie, so settle down with your beverage of choice and let's get cracking. And stay till the end when I talk to you about my experience with castor oil. So let's start with fragrance, and I've got two to talk about today, and both of them were recommended by Risa of Risa Does Makeup. Now neither of them are super high end because I've stopped buying the sort of Tom Fords. Well, actually that's not quite true. I did buy Tom Ford last year, but it was on sale and it was a big bottle. But I've stopped buying those really super expensive Tom Fords for now, and I've gone sort of medium price. And the first one is this YSL Libre Eau de Parfum in this very snazzy looking bottle, very smart. It's a really pretty bottle. I like this gold. It's just an attractive bottle to display on your dressing table or your shelf. Now this has top notes of lavender, mandarin orange, blackcurrant and petitgrain. Its middle notes are lavender, orange blossom and jasmine, and its base notes are Madagascar vanilla, musk, cedar and ambergris. Oh my gosh, I could just keep inhaling it all day. It's definitely a warm, earthy smell. That's how I describe it. I did a video about my favourite fragrances, so if you want to know more about it, I'll link that down below for you. Now let's talk about the Jimmy Choo, my other fave, and this is it here, another beautiful bottle. The only weird thing about this is this top doesn't come off. It's literally where you apply the perfume from, if you like. That's where the hole is. Now this one has top notes of peach and mandarin orange. Its middle notes are jasmine and red lily, and its base note is vanilla. Actually, it is really interesting because this is really quite different. This is definitely fruitier. Oh my gosh, it's more citrusy as well, but it's still got that strength and that length, if you know what I mean. Absolutely beautiful. I won't go on about them because you can watch me talk about them in depth in my video, but I absolutely love them, and the price points are not over the top. I think each of these bottles cost around 50 or 60 pounds, so they have lasted me really well. I've had them since December, and you can see how far down we've got with them, although I don't think I took them on holiday with me, so I did have a couple of weeks when I wasn't using them. But since Christmas I've been using just these two, and I do think they are really fantastic perfumes. And I usually spray my clothes. I can't spray my body with them, but I spray my clothes, and I think they are really beautiful, long-lasting fragrances. Now let's talk about makeup, and firstly let's talk about BK Beauty's lipsticks. Oh my goodness me, they are absolutely beautiful. I'm actually not wearing one today, but that's because I've just been recording another video. And these are the two shades I've got. I've got Inner Beauty, which is this one, and I've got Gratitude, which is this one. So we've got Inner Beauty and Gratitude. Honestly, they've got that beautiful satin finish. They don't look too glossy, they don't look too matte, they've just got that beautiful in-between sheen, as it were, that makes your lips look luscious and full. The shades are beautiful. I'm sure I could get other shades as well, but I thought these were right up my alley, which they are. I think they're about 20-something pounds. All the details will be down below for you, and I absolutely adore them. And the final beauty product I want to talk about that is definitely in my faves, and I am wearing it today, and that is the YSL Mini Clutch. Now look at these absolutely stunning shades. I'm actually only wearing this one on my lids today, but look at these other fabulous colours. I mean, they're so creamy. They feel really luxe. Of course they are luxe. I mean, it is not a cheap palette by any means, but that gives you an idea of some of the colours. Absolutely beautiful palette, and it's probably not too over the top to say it is actually my favourite palette. The other palettes that I used to really love were the MAC £9 palettes, which actually they've discontinued the shades, but I've still got them and I still do love them. But this has definitely supplanted those in my faves. And I mean, look how beautiful it is. It's really portable. It's relatively light and small. It's just an absolutely luxurious palette to own, and I really do love it. And I know that I'm going to get a lot of wear out of it. In fact, I'm going to predict that by the end of the year I'll have hit pan. You can hold me to that. Now let's move on to fashion. And firstly, let's talk about the jumper that I'm wearing. Now this is a man's cashmere jumper from Uniqlo. Now those of you who watched my channel before know how much I love Uniqlo. And I can't remember exactly where I got the idea of trying a man's jumper on in Uniqlo. I think it was Natalie Martin actually, who, I'll put her channel down below for you. She does a lot of Uniqlo videos, and she and I, well, I'm not the same size as her or the same age, but I'm petite like she is. I'm 5'4" or maybe 5'3.5" now. And although she's much slimmer around the middle than I am, she does wear some quite oversized clothes. And I'm pretty sure she was the one that said try a man's jumper. And I have to say, I think actually the choice of shades and possibly even the texture of the cashmere is better in the men's. Now this is a size small and I am quite small shouldered, but it seems to fit me really well and it's nice and loose around the middle. So that's one of the reasons I like it. It gives me the opportunity to sort of fold it up a bit, but also be very comfortable. And I really like the shades. It comes in, I think there's a navy blue, there's a dark green. I have the navy blue as well, which I wear on repeat actually with this one at the moment, given that it's winter. And I honestly can't recommend these enough. I think they're absolutely fantastic. They're really comfortable. And if you don't like pastels, because Uniqlo does tend to do pastel shades for women and deeper shades for men, then I think it's definitely worth checking them out. Now, another favourite fashion item of mine, which I have been wearing constantly, are these Palermo trainers. Now, I bought these, I think it was at the back end of last year. I was trying to get a pair and I couldn't find the exact pair that I wanted, because this is the pair that my daughter had, and I just really like the colour combination of the beige suede, the white, and then the black here. Now it is amazing to me, but at the moment nearly everyone in London seems to be wearing trainers. If I go on the tube into town, you can guarantee that 90% of the carriage, and it doesn't matter what time of day it is, will be wearing some sort of trainer. So they are obviously incredibly popular. And I don't know whether it's a feature of offices dressing down a little bit more, not wearing suits. In fact, our dry cleaners was saying that their takings are down so much from dry cleaning because people just aren't wearing suits and shirts in the way that they used to. Anyway, back to the trainers. These are super comfortable. I managed to get them for £50, which I thought was really good. They've got a nice rubber sole. I can put my orthotics in. These are the Amazon orthotics that I find very helpful. And I think they do go with so many types of bottoms. They go with straight leg jeans. I think they also go with wider leg jeans. They're really super comfortable and stylish. Now, before we go on to music, books, films, etc., I just want to talk about a couple of homeware items. Now, don't laugh, but this is one of them, and it's a rake. And I bought it from Amazon. Now you're thinking, Des, what on earth are you doing with a little tiny rake like this? You're not going to be able to do your garden with it, are you? But no, it's not for the garden. It is for the stairs. Now, I don't know about you, but my hair falls out quite regularly, and if only someone would invent something to magically get rid of the hairs in your shower, that would be great. But I also find that my carpet, especially the stairs, gets covered in the hairs that I shed. Yes, you can use your vacuum cleaner and you can spray it with water first, which is what I used to do when I had a dog back in the day. But honestly, this is the best invention, and it really, unless you've got thousands of stairs, it won't take you long to use. And all you do is you rake the stair carpet and out comes a lot of hair, I have to tell you. And it really doesn't take me very long. And this rake has really helped to keep my carpets free from my hair droppings, as it were. And I'm just going to mention another great invention for me. Now, I have a shower that doesn't have a shower tray. I mean, I know this is really not that interesting for most people, but for some reason or other, I stupidly never had one put in when we had the shower put in years ago, and I've been trying to find a suction shower tray that will hold my shampoo and conditioner, etc. Cannot find one. Finally, looking on Wayfair, I managed to find, and I'll put a picture up now, this really clever contraption that hooks onto the bar that controls the shower temperature and the water, and it literally just hooks on the back, and it's got a deep enough shower tray to hold your taller bottles of shampoo and conditioner, which could be quite difficult to find, and it's genius. I absolutely love it. Right, now let's change the subject completely and talk about books. Now, I have to say that my favourite audiobook, possibly of all time, and probably my longest audiobook, is the one by Barbra Streisand. Now, I hadn't started listening to it, I don't think, when I did my November faves. And honestly, I have loved it so much. I have found it absolutely fascinating. Now, it has to be said, I am a big Barbra fan, although I've never been a massive fan of her later films. In fact, I haven't seen many of them, but I am trying to catch up with them now. But I just think the story of how she came to be so successful and a deep dive into all the work that she's done and how she creates things. For example, I hadn't realised how interested in art she was from a very young age. She could obviously draw. She designed so many of her costumes and clothes. She did her own makeup. I used to think her makeup was fabulous and try to emulate it. I loved the way she did a sort of cat eye makeup long before it was fashionable, with shadow rather than just black eyeliner. Her creative process in making films, really fascinating, and learning about all the different roles within filmmaking. Even though my mother was an actress, I didn't know about so many things to do with filmmaking, and I found it so interesting. So if you are a Barbra fan, I think you will really enjoy the audiobook because you also get to hear her sing. And of course, her voice to me is one of the best voices in the world. So I absolutely highly recommend it. Now, in terms of actual physical books, when I was on holiday, I took a couple of books with me and I didn't get on with them at all. I just found them too sort of millennial focused really and not relatable in any way. But I did really enjoy a couple of books that I picked up from the hotel libraries. And the first one was The Chessmen by a writer called Peter May. And this was a series of books that he'd written that was set in the Orkneys, which are the islands about as far north as you can get of the British Isles. And they have their own language, and a lot of the place names are written in, for me, incomprehensible language. So at the back of the book, there's a little explainer about how to pronounce these names. And it's a detective story, so there's, as usual, a kind of maverick or ex-detective in this instance, who's trying to solve not exactly a murder, but a disappearance. And I really found it very atmospheric. I really enjoyed the characters. I thought they were very well written. You really got the sense of the mood of the place, that it's quite dark and wet, and the landscape is quite unforgiving, which seems to go with the mood of the book. And although the end is in a way a little bit unsatisfying because there's always an explanation, which is always the case with whodunits, because ultimately it is a whodunit, I really enjoyed the rest of it, and I didn't find the ending too much of a letdown. It's just that there's always an explanation at the end, which seems to go on forever. But I think if you are into detective stories, you will enjoy it, and it's set in a place that I knew nothing about. So I found that really interesting. Now I'm going to talk about another novel, and I'm going to tie it in to a TV series, because both of them touch on the same subject, and that is euthanasia. Now this has become quite a debate in the UK at the moment. And those of you in the UK who know Prue Leith, who is one of the stars of the Great British Bake Off, a very, very well-known chef and cookery school owner. And she has been around, well, she's in her 80s now, and she's absolutely a great role model for those of us who are growing older. She really is. She's as vibrant and as energetic and as positive as you can get, and very colourful as well. And her son, Danny Kruger, is a British MP, and they both have completely opposing views as regards euthanasia, because Prue is very pro it, obviously in certain circumstances, and her son is very against it. And there is this debate going on, I think it's going on at the moment in the Houses of Parliament, about whether it should be legalised in very precise circumstances. Now, in Canada, it is legalised, and actually at the moment, there's even more of a debate going on about whether it should be expanded. So, back to the TV series and the book. So the TV series that I watched recently is called True Love, and that was on Channel 4. I don't know whether it's available in the States, but those of you in the UK or who can get UK TV should try and find it if you're at all interested in the subject. But it's also a detective story. It's not a story just about euthanasia. It's got a big detective element to it, and that's what makes it really interesting. But one of the things I loved so much about it was that the characters, who are all in their 70s, apart from the detective element of the story, are so well written. They're so real. They're properly well drawn 70-plus-year-old characters. So we're not doddery old people who don't understand the internet or anything like that. They're completely normal people, just like we are. And I absolutely appreciated that. With all their faults, with all their lines and wrinkles and experience, they were just so well written. And the reason I mention that, because coincidentally, while I was watching that TV series, I picked up this other novel, and I had no idea that that had euthanasia at its heart as well. And this is a novel from a series of novels by a writer called Louise from Canada. So again, it has the Canadian element to it. I didn't know anything about her. I picked it off the library shelf in Beckway when I was on holiday there. And it really covers the subject of euthanasia as part of a detective story. And it's quite a long novel. I think it was about 400 or 500 pages, but I found it so engrossing. Again, the reason I liked it was the reason I liked the Orkney novel was because it's set in an area that I know nothing about. It's set in Montreal. I've been to Canada, but I've never been to Montreal. And it's actually set just outside Montreal in this probably fictional place I'm imagining called Three Pines. And weirdly, another coincidence, I hadn't realised this, but I'd actually saved, but although I hadn't watched, a detective story on Amazon Prime, I think is one of my favourites, called Three Pines, which is actually based on these series of novels by Louise Penny. Anyway, back to the novel. The novel is really engrossing. And again, if you love detective stories and you're interested in the subject matter, it is incredibly well written, and it's post-pandemic. So it really seems to capture the mood and probably some of the debate going on in Canada at the moment about this particular topic. Now, I'm just going to touch on theatre, and I'm going to mention seeing the fabulous Sarah Jessica Parker on stage. How lucky was I to go and see her? Honestly, I've been a huge fan of Sex and the City. I didn't enjoy the reboot of it, I'm afraid, but I loved this. I loved the original series, and I was very late to the party. I didn't start watching it until I think series 5, and then I started to catch up. But she is such a great stage actress. She's got such verve, such vibrancy. She was so into it. She was obviously loving every moment of it. So if you ever get the chance to see her on stage, and what a comic actress she is, I highly recommend it. Her husband was great as well. The play was a little bit dull, Plaza Suite, but you can see why they chose it, because it's virtually a two-hander, and they were so good. Highly, highly recommend catching her on stage if you can. Now let's talk about films. And I don't know about you, but my husband and I are always struggling to find things to watch. Oh my Lord. He didn't want to watch True Love, so I had to watch that on my own, but I prefer to watch things with him. So these are some of the things that we've watched together and enjoyed for various different reasons. So the first one was a film called You Hurt My Feelings with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. This was a film recommended to me by one of my friends, and it is a lovely film. It's all set in New York. It's all set around this writer. The reason it resonated with me was because I've written a novel, some of you may know this, not published. And in this film, Julia Louis-Dreyfus has written a successful novel, and then she writes another one, and her husband, she discovers, secretly doesn't like it or doesn't think much to it. So it sort of had some resonances with me, even though my husband actually hasn't read my novel and probably never will. In fact, nobody probably will. A few of you have kindly read it and fed back to me, which is really nice of you. And if you want to read it, I'm happy to send you a copy, but it is in PDF form at the moment because it's not published. I could think about self-publishing it, and I might one day, but I don't know. It probably needs a rewrite or two. Anyway, that's why I quite enjoyed the film, and it's well acted. It's got a really good British actor whose name escapes me at the moment. Oh, Tobias something or other, that's right. He was in The Crown. I think he played Prince Philip in the sort of midsection of the series of The Crown. And I really enjoyed it. It was a nice watch. Now, here's a film that was quite a difficult watch called Saltburn. I don't know whether any of you have watched that. Now, that was up for some BAFTAs. I don't think it won anything, actually. It's written and directed by Emerald Fennell, who was in The Crown playing Camilla. And she also wrote another film called Promising Young Woman, which I haven't seen, with Carey Mulligan. But I did enjoy this, and so did my husband, up to a point. There were some things in there which really we didn't want to see, so I did cover my eyes, and they went on a bit too long. So those of you who watched it will know the scenes I mean, I'm sure. But I did overall enjoy it, and I thought it was quite a clever plot. And the very last scene in the film has the actor Barry Keoghan dancing away in the nude. to the song Murder on the Dance Floor by Sophie Ellis-Bextor, and of course that song has become an earworm now. I just can't stop hearing it in my head. Anyway, if you want to watch a film set in Oxford, which is very well acted, which has some scenes which you might or might not find a little bit unpleasant, but you're prepared to go there, then it's worth a watch. Now let's talk about another couple of films, both starring the actress Sandra Hüller. The first one is Anatomy of a Fall. Now this one I think is nominated for an Oscar, and both of us really enjoyed it. It is, again, a kind of a detective story / courtroom drama, and it's set in the French Alps. Looks beautiful, very well acted, has a wonderful young boy actor who's probably about 12 or 13 in it. Excellent. And if you like courtroom dramas, you will enjoy it, I think. It's got subtitles and some of it is in English. It's really interesting. It did remind me, the beginning of it did remind me of the story of the staircase, but it's a story in its own right, and I really think it's worth a watch. And the second film that Sandra Hüller is in is The Zone of Interest. Now, this is a film which could be a difficult watch because it's about Rudolf Höss, not Rudolf Hess, but Rudolf Höss, who lived next door to Auschwitz with his whole family in this very attractive, not the house, but very attractive garden and beautiful surrounding countryside. Now, I'd actually read a book which I talked about in my newsletter, and the link to subscribe to that will be in the description box below if you would like to do that. And this book is called The Escape Artist, and it's about two Auschwitz inmates, two Jewish Auschwitz inmates who escaped from Auschwitz and were able to save about 200,000 lives of Jews who were going to be deported from Hungary to Auschwitz. And this film touches on that actually, because Rudolf Höss was apparently considered an expert in managing Auschwitz, and he was then sent to organise the deportation of Hungarian Jews to Auschwitz. It is a difficult watch in some ways, but I didn't find it as compelling as I thought, and I am super interested in the subject. I'm Jewish myself. My family escaped from the Nazis in 1939 and came to the UK just in time, so I am connected to the subject. But I didn't find it as impactful as I thought I might. It doesn't show anything graphic. All that happens is you hear the sounds, the awful sounds of the goings-on next door, and of course the juxtaposition of this beautiful garden and surrounding countryside where the Nazi family is gambling in the fields. I'll tell you, one of the most impactful scenes actually is when the family get deliveries of clothes that have been taken, including a fur coat and lipstick that Sandra Hüller's character, Mrs. Höss, finds and puts on, and puts her hand in the pocket of the fur coat, draws out this lipstick and actually puts it on, which is pretty powerful stuff, isn't it? Now, finally, I'm just going to mention a couple of social media channels that I think you ought to watch or read. So on Instagram, I want to mention a couple. One's called Very British Problems, which is such a funny read. If you're looking for some humour, I highly recommend it. And the other is Holly Hudson. Holly Hudson is an American living in London, and she does these comparison videos on how an American would react to a certain situation and how a British person would, and they are really, really funny. So highly recommend both of those channels. And on YouTube, I want to mention a couple. Now, I have mentioned my lovely friend Heba on YouTube, who does beauty videos, but she's also done some travel videos, which if you're thinking of going to Egypt, which are her most recent ones, I highly recommend that you watch. They're absolutely fantastic. And she gives you a lot of explanation of the history, and actually her family are from Egypt, so she's got a real connection to the place anyway. And the other is TT Sandra, or Sandra is her actual name, and she does beauty videos focusing mainly on high-end products, and she really showcases them very beautifully. And she also does a lot on fragrance as well with one of her friends. And finally, I'm going to mention Castor Oil, as everyone else on YouTube seems to be doing. Now, I bought this bottle about 3 or 4 months ago, just after I'd had my eye operation, because I needed to find something that after I was able to wear makeup again, which was about 4 weeks after the operation, I wanted something that would enable me to take my eye makeup off really gently. And honestly, I've tried all sorts of things, including micellar water and cleansing oils and all of that. And I just thought if I soaked a cotton pad in water and then in castor oil, or even castor oil by itself, but it is very viscous, as Dr. Dre said. And that's a really interesting video, which I'll link down below for you, where she talks about the castor oil phenomenon. It would help to take my makeup off, and honestly, I'm afraid I have to tell you, it didn't. So castor oil for eye makeup removal isn't a thing. So there you have it. Those are my February faves. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I've really enjoyed making it. And if you have enjoyed it, I'd be so grateful if you subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and of course leave me a comment below and let me know what your favourites are. I'm absolutely loving engaging with everybody in the comments section. It's so much fun. And I'll leave a link to my newsletter down below in case you want to subscribe to that. And thank you so much for watching. It means the absolute world to me. It really does. And I hope you're all doing really well. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.